What is up, everybody? So Jake Blickenstaff here with Virtual Properties Realty out of the Georgia market. And I got, a good friend of mine, Joe Rosen, on the call. He's an agent that is down in Port St. Lucie, Florida, that just absolutely crushes it, man. Has a killer team with EXP Realty. So I know about you, Joe. Go ahead and, tell everybody on the call that, like, who you are, what you're doing, what your involvement kind of in the community, because I know that you're probably one of my favorite agents to stay in touch with on social media, just because of the way that you convey. Like, and if you guys haven't seen any of Joe's stuff, I'm going to put a link somewhere in and around this video so that way you can go follow and look at Joe's stuff. But I mean, he's phenomenal because it's the epitome of social media, not about you. It's 100% about everybody
Love
else.
that.
And I think that's one of the most powerful tools that you can do whenever you're trying to connect and network, especially in our business. But I'll let you kind of take it away and tell everybody about who you are and kind of what you're about.
Yeah, well, number one, it's an honor to be here, man. I appreciate you. We've been great, friends through. It's funny how you can be friends now, so close to friends with people over Facebook now. But just to see the success that you've had and some of the different groups we in to see all, it's the same 10, 20 folks that are just doing it, man, and they're succeeding, and you're one of them, and it's just fun to watch everything you're doing, man. So this is just a wonderful pleasure of mine. I appreciate you having me on. Yeah, so I sold real estate back in, I want to say it was 2004 is when I got in Minnesota, and I was with a brokerage called Edina Realty, which it was such a different market. I'm not talking housing market, I'm talking about brokerage market there versus down here in Port St. Lucie, Florida. And really, in my opinion, what I've seen, maybe all of Florida, and there in St. Cloud, Minnesota, was about 120,000 person area. There were really four brokerages that had about 90% of the business. And I would say there were two that probably had 70% of the business. And I was at one of the big two, right? Now down here in Florida, I don't even know who number one is in my market, but I can almost guarantee they do not have 10% of the market. So there's a lot of little guys. There's a lot of big guys, but the big, I should say, names don't really have a ton of market share like you would see in a lot of other markets. So it's really interesting, right? So I was selling real estate in Minnesota for 5 or 6 years, and I was a single agent. I was doing really well, but the Army called my name. So I joined the Army. I was in for 10 years, loved it, needed it. That's, one of the reasons I got in was I was partying too hard. I was a kid, man. I was making money and I had a kid's mentality, and I needed that Army structure. So and it worked, just joining the Army mixed with, getting some rank and responsibility, mixed with becoming a husband and a parent. And it matures you, right? Plus I just got old, right? And so all of that. And then we decided in 2019, so 4 years ago now, to leave the Army. I was in Washington State. We did a lot of research, man. I'll tell you, this is one of the easiest pitches when people are coming from out of state, and they're like, why should I come to Port St. Lucie? I'm like, listen, I was in Washington State. I knew zero people in Florida. I did my research. It was one of the top safest big cities in America for I don't know how many years in a row. It's got phenomenal schools. It's on the ocean, no income tax, sunny South Florida weather. It's just a great area, and it's one of the most affordable areas in South Florida. So that just kind of drew me down here. And when I got here, I started at Keller Williams, and I loved Keller Williams. Honestly, if the brokerage I'm at now wasn't here, I'd probably go back to Keller Williams. Had great leadership there, started some great friendships that still helped me with my current business, and just great partnerships on different things. And then I decided I was going to leave, and I went to EXP Realty, and I was still a single agent doing my single agent thing. And all of a sudden, out of the blue, I get a call from Lizette Hurtado. And she said, hey, I want to join your team. And I said, funny thing about it, I don't have a team. And she said, well, you better start one. I said, all right, cool. So that was kind of the beginning of, the team concept, and hats off to her, because I absolutely sucked, as we all probably do, as a team leader on day one. You can be the best agent on the planet, selling 1 million homes, you know everything about real estate. But when it comes to being a team leader, you've got to figure out training and scheduling and staff and support. And like, there's so much more to it that makes the complexity level just really go up quite a bit. and I had to do it immediately. I didn't have time to sit and prepare for all that stuff because I already had somebody underneath me depending upon me, which is good and bad, right? It was good for me. It was good for the speed. She probably didn't get the best leadership for the first 6 months, but that was the start of it. And now we've got, in the organization, we've got 40 some agents, and on my team, I want to say we've got, somewhere between 7 and 8. One is a full-time staff member, and then we've got a TC, and then the rest are agents. But yeah, so it's that's my story in about 3 minutes right there, man. Pretty fun story.
Well, no, I love it. I always enjoy hearing other people's kind of come up, if you will. But you spoke about a couple things that I kind of want to go back and unpack a little bit. So the military experience, I'm a veteran too. I was in the Navy, so out
Yeah,
in
thank
Pearl
you.
Harbor for almost 4 years. I know it was a very rough duty station.
Yeah,
But for me, I know that the training that was received through the military, I came out on the backside of that. I wasn't in for 10 like you, but like I'm a much better person with that structure and
yes.
discipline. And so prior to that, you couldn't have told me to do anything without there being some combativeness in that. So I think that's a huge opportunity for anybody that is a veteran to, when you do get out, like, since you do have that structure and discipline, I mean, you're already put worlds ahead of a lot of
Big
people
time.
that don't necessarily have that.
Yeah.
Do you agree?
Yeah, there's a couple areas you're really, and I didn't even know it at first. Everybody says, "Oh, you're going to be so good because you have military," and yeah, we'll see, right? But number one, at a basic level, even if you've got 3 years in the military, you learn how to get out of bed on time, right?
Mhm.
A lot of people don't even have that skill, and if you're forced to get up out of bed, which you are in the military, you kind of force yourself to go to bed at the same time. You learn to hydrate all the time. That's the solution to everything. You got a broken leg, drink water, right? You got shot in the arm, drink water. It doesn't matter, drink water. So you learn to drink a lot of water. You learn how to make small habits. You learn that training needs to be a consistent part of your week. You learn that accountability matters, that reporting matters, tracking matters. You just kind of learn these habits that a lot of these kids who are 18, 19, 20 years old and have never been exposed to it, maybe didn't have a father figure, whatever it is, they just weren't exposed to all this. You've got these habit building qualities instilled in you. And then once you hit a leadership position, I was a staff sergeant and I was battalion operations NCOIC. I led a platoon a couple times. I led in Afghanistan. You start to learn what a training meeting looks like and what a command
Yeah.
and staff meeting looks like and what does the boss want to hear, what do metrics look like, what happens when the team succeeds, what do you do for them, what happens when the team fails, what do you do for them. And you don't even think about it, but I see so many team leaders who struggle, and when I talk to them, it's so easy for me to say, well, do this, do this, do this. And it has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with the exposure I have from the military. And just, this is what the military did. And it's a way bigger, better organization than I'm running. So just try it and see what happens. And, so that's been phenomenal too. I think you also get used to, and this is such a big deal in real estate, man. Everybody thinks that you're going to come in, you're going to wear your Gucci bag, drive your BMW, and get your fake boobs and your fake teeth, and you're going to go sell some houses. And, that's the glamorous 10% of our job. The other 90% is literally just calling people and getting told to go screw off.
Mhm.
And you've got to get used to that, excited about that. And I'm not going to go too deep on that, but when you're in the military, your whole life sucks. Like basic training sucks, and then waking up early in the morning sucks.
Embrace
PT,
the suck was the
yeah,
term we always.
exactly. Yeah. So everything sucks. But what you learn is if you can put up with the suck, you're proud of what you went through. And that's how you bond with people, is you go through crappy situations together. And now you feel like you're stronger together. So I don't know, man, there's so many innate things that are kind of driven into you, hammered into you through the military. And I'm still realizing how much the military has given me just through osmosis.
Yeah, and I would completely agree with that. One of the points that you made, I want to touch on also, is like the consistency of your daily routine that we learn, and I mean, it gets beat into you.
Yeah.
Like, you have to be places on time, and if you're on time, you're actually late. You have to be there early. Well, that consistency carrying over, I always like to see, how those life experiences correlate to what we're doing as real estate agents and brokers. Man, I can't tell you. I know that you run a team. We have a team of about 25 agents, and where we'll touch a little bit more on kind of team dynamics here in just a minute. But the biggest thing that I see from agents that we onboard is that they currently don't have any systems in place, or they don't have any structure in place. They're like, they get so lost in the minutia of, man, I need to design this website. And it's like, that is not important. You need to go talk to people. And then from conversations, that breeds action. But that consistency that I was kind of talking about is, I'm a part of your group, which I absolutely love. And I think it's brilliant that you show the consistency to the hundreds of agents that are in that group. It's the 7-Eleven Joe Rosen Group, where like every morning at 7-Eleven, you put out some kind of inspirational message about what's going on in our business to be successful, or to help them out. So, I mean, you're the epitome of always coming from a position of value, not only for your clients, but also for other agents that aren't even on your team and that you have zero financial benefit from. And so I've always felt that that's one of the biggest things that we can do that will separate us from other agents, because most other agents, they're so hyper focused on that one transaction or that one deal that you're losing out on the lifetime relationship of somebody, which in actuality is 10 to 20 deals.
Yes.
And then the people that, I'm not even worried about doing a transaction with you. I'm legitimately just trying to help, because I found out that there was like a need somewhere in our conversation where you're like, man, my roof is, crappy. I can't sell my house. Man, I got a roofer. Let me call him right now and introduce you. Like, he can help you. I don't even care if you want to sell your house.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so having that value, or always coming from that position of value, that's one of the things that I always try to highlight to our team, is that stop worrying about like the what's in it for me attitude. What's in it for the other person that you're talking to?
Yep.
What's in it for them? What kind of value can you bring to them to tenfold anything that you could potentially ever ask for?
That's beautiful. And we've got, on our team, we got 6 core values. Every single Monday we have a sales meeting and we go over one of the 6 values. And this week, the core value was giver's mentality. And same thing, man, whether it's, helping agents, helping buyers and sellers, helping your community, helping charitable organizations, helping your family, your neighbors, whatever. Really, when you think about it, it's all about any job. It doesn't matter what it is. It's all about offering some sort of contribution to society, whether it's a good or a service. And society deems it good enough that they want to pay you for it. They want to compensate you for it. And the more value you give and the more dependable you are, the more they're going to want to pay you. If it's an employer, they'll pay you more. And if they won't, some other employee will, and now you're moving. And if it's in a business like ours where you own the business, they've got options. They've got options between different realtors, and 99% of realtors are just pitch and pitch. And this is why you want to work with me. I'm amazing. And when you come out and you're the one who says, if you work with me, it's awesome, but let's take care of your needs first, regardless of whether or not you work with me, let's get you taken care of. And then we can talk about me if that's something you still want to do. It's such an attractive thing, because people don't want to be sold anything. They want to be educated. They want to be helped. They want to be mentored. And that's what makes them comfortable, man. And it just, I tell people all the time, the greediest thing you can do, my agents, the greediest thing you can do is forget about selling and just go help people, man. You do that, it'll make you feel good in here. And honestly, it's the best way to sell.
No, I love that. I think it's beautiful having that that value proposition of what you can bring to the table over just being pretty much an order taker.
Yeah.
Or, transaction coordinator, so to say. So let's switch gears a little bit and talk about kind of the team dynamics. I know that you said you have like roughly 40 agents on the team right now. And the neat part, anybody that's watching this, if you're in real estate already and you don't know about EXP Realty, I mean, I guess you guys have been living under a rock. But if for everybody else that knows about it, I mean, like I said, you guys have a stellar team down there. And the cool part about that, which I've always been fascinated about, is like you have the ability to help, just like how, we have a relationship and a friendship and we're in different states, is that you can essentially work with anybody else all over the United States. And I think you guys are all over the world now. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're not everywhere, but it seems like every month they're opening a new country or two. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean that's a pretty cool dynamic, and I know for our company, I'm with Virtual Properties Realty, and we've expanded into Florida now, and now we're licensed to operate in South Carolina, and we're kind of like partnered with United Real Estate. So that's I don't necessarily think parent company is the right term, but they're I think one of the 7th largest brokerages in the country. So I mean there's something to be said about that as well. But kind of going back into the team dynamic. I know that with my own experience, like you talked when Lizette came to you and you started this team, and you said that for the first 6 months, you probably didn't do her any justice, really. Well, I know that I had a team as well. I had probably about 4 or 5 agents, and I absolutely just fell on my face
Yeah.
because, everybody thinks that they get into it and it's like, well, hey, if selling real estate's great, what's even better is that passive income. And the way that you get passive income is you start to build out that kind of business and team dynamic of having buyers agents. I know Keller Williams has a phenomenal training method that it's very successful, where you bring on different roles to take care of different things within kind of your organization. But I know that for me, what was it that you found helped you the most to be able to transition into, like, I don't know what I'm doing, to how can I help you succeed the best?
I really think it was the focus on building small habits consistently over time, right? I was well aware I was not going to be the best team leader in the first 6 months, but instead of letting that overwhelm me, just saying, what can I do this week? What one thing am I seeing with other teams that they're doing successfully? And dude, I watched a ton of YouTube videos. I read a ton of articles. I met with local team leaders and brokers, and I wanted to know, what are you doing that works? What are you doing that didn't work? I was calling friends back home, top realtors who I had relationships with in Minnesota, anybody I could get my hands on, man. And that was probably one of the things that brought me to this brokerage. Was the guy above me had a team, and he was, when I came on, he had 50 pendings at one time with his team, and the guy above him has been here for now 20 years, and he's got one of the biggest teams in, it's a 2-county market that we run here. And I just thought, man, if I come over, will you guys open the curtains and show me everything, your successes, your failures, all of it? I want to know everything you're doing. And they said, absolutely, 100%. So once they told me that I would get the time from them to do that, it was really a no-brainer. So coming over, I just tried to every week sit down with them on the phone for 10, 15 minutes and say, you know where my business is at? What's the next big thing that you're doing that I'm not doing that I can add? And they would say, hey, you need to have a weekly business meeting. Awesome. So we started the business meeting, and I had a horrible business meeting. And then I would say a month later, like, I don't know if I like this business meeting thing. Well, how you doing it? I'm doing like this. Okay, try doing these 3 things and take these 2 things out of it, because that doesn't really matter. Oh, okay, cool. And then adding the tracking and adding the paid leads and adding the CRM and adding the staff and all of these things. I don't know that, maybe 90% of them were Joe Rosen ideas. It was me listening to other people who had been successful before me, just kind of handing those down to me. And honestly, that's the quickest, easiest way. The 10% that were Joe Rosen ideas, man, those are the ones I had to put the most time and effort into. And they might not even be the best 10%, honestly. So really just kind of learning that other successful people, regardless of where they're at, what brokerage they're at, even if they're my next door neighbor, they want to see you succeed. The people who I see that are holding back all their info, those are the people that generally aren't doing the best. The successful people, not all of them, most of them, they want to see everybody succeed, and they know that there's, endless amounts of business out there. So really just that commitment to saying, I'm going to find something every single week to add to what it is we do, to add value to the guys. That's it.
No, I think that's huge. And you actually touched on one of the points that I was going to kind of circle back to, is that, for one, having a mentor in all aspects of your life is pivotal to your success, because why spend the time spinning your tires and trying to recreate the wheel when somebody else has already come before you and done it? You just simply have to, for one, find a way to get in front of them. For two, be willing to ask the question. And for three, being able to take that information and actually implement it.
Action.
There's nothing worse than what I like to call an ask hole, where they sit there and ask you questions and you tell them the exact answer of what you have to do, and then you talk to them on a follow-up meeting, and it's like, did you do the last things that we talked about? Well, no. Okay, why not? And I mean, you have to be willing to learn, and then you have to be coachable. I think those are the 2 of the biggest parts. And one of the failures that I had early on when I had first started my team originally a couple years back was I wasn't doing any kind of follow-up or like team meetings. It was more along the lines of like, hey, I'm putting out constant communication and I'm a hard charger and I know what to do.
Yep.
Let me just tell you what I'm doing. And then I expect you guys to kind of go out and duplicate those efforts.
Yes.
But, not a lot of people are that way, especially as you get into leadership roles within the industry. You start having to learn how to deal with other people, like personality types. Not everybody's a high performing D where you just can cut straight to the chase. This is what you need to do. Now go do it. Some people, you have to cater to the person that you're talking to with, how you deliver the information, how you package it. And, do you need to be empathetic whenever you're speaking to them? So, I mean, there's a lot more to being a leader than just saying, hey, this is what you need to go do it.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And, that's something I learned too. And I've gone too far with it and I had to pull back, and I'll kind of walk you through some of the things that I did. When I first started, I did not have any type of accountability meeting with my guys or anything like that. There was no tracking. I didn't know how many calls you were making. Really all I saw was sales. That was it. And, once you really focus on not the sales, but everything that leads into the sales, I think it's kind of daunting when you're a new agent and you think, oh man, Joe wants me to get sales, but that just seems like Mount Everest to me, man. And I don't control it. How am I going to do this? So if you can really dumb the funnel down to conversations and don't worry about the appointments, obviously try to set them, but that's not what you're committed to. You're not committed to submitting offers. You're not committed to listings. You're not committed to under contract. All you're committed to is X amount of conversations a day. And we work that backwards. So now when I get guys on the team, within a week, they have to meet with me for 90 minutes. And we go through this whole, it's essentially saying, how much money do you want to make? Yep. Great. Let's work out what is an average commission. Great. So how many commissions do you need? You need 12. Great. So if you want 12, this is how many listings, and then we work it all backwards. Eventually to get the big number is how many conversations a week you've got to have. And we've got a Facebook thread, a DM thread. And in there every single day, my staff will put, Joe said he's going to do X amount and he's at, 40 out of his 50. So Joe, you still owe 10 this week. Lizette said she's going to do 55. She's at 33. So Lizette, you've still got 22 to go. And you can see that constantly. And we've got CTE tracking, and I've used CSU and I've used CTE. Both are amazing tracking systems where you can punch in. We call them the Big 11, but it's essentially the main stats. And I always tell my guys, hey, at the end of the day, it's just like old school. You had that time clock you had to punch out. You do not leave until you get on there and enter your numbers. It takes you once you get used to it, it probably takes me less than 10 seconds. Mm-hmm. But at first it takes you 2 minutes, right? You go in, you enter all your data, you hit boom, and it enters it in the system so the staff can see what we're doing and they can run numbers. And if you've seen my Facebook page, I think I just put up yesterday, it takes us, I'm making these up, but 13.7 conversations to get an appointment met. It takes us 51.3 calls, whether they pick up or not, to get an appointment met. So if you want 3 appointments a week, you can just multiply that by 3. And now you feel like you're in control. And we didn't have that at first. So we started that. That has helped a lot. It really motivates people. And if you can gamify it and make it fun, that helps people. So here's where I started doing a better job, but I gave too much and I had to pull back a little bit, was I started doing bi-weekly, we call them fire meetings. And I tell my guys that the idea of this meeting is to light a fire under your ass, right? So when I meet with you, we're going to talk about the goals that you said you wanted. Maybe you said you were going to do 50 conversations a week. Awesome. What did you really do for the last 2 weeks? Did you do your 50? Okay, great. Do you now want to bump it up to 55 or do you want to stay at 50? Okay, I don't care either way, whatever you want to do. If you're not meeting it, one of two things happened. It's either you, and then we got to work on you, right? Discipline, waking up early, scheduling your time, whatever it is. Or it's the strategy. Maybe we have a shitty plan. Okay, cool. Then we'll recreate the plan and we'll drive forward. And that's business, man. Don't worry about failing. As long as you fail once you recreate a plan, you just keep driving forward with it. But what was happening was, and I'm sure every team sees this, 70-80% of the folks just don't put in the effort and they're not making the calls, or maybe they're doing it for 3 months, but then they kind of sputter out and they just don't have the stamina. And I was still meeting with them, and those meetings get ugly and they get boring, and it was draining me of energy.
Yeah.
So I had to sit down with all my guys and I said, listen, I'm not going to do this anymore. Like I'm not going to make you leave the brokerage, but I can make you leave the team. And you can come back to the team anytime you want, but you can't tell me you want to come back. You have to earn it back by producing so many numbers, and you've got to do it for 4 weeks in a row. If you do that, you can come back on the team. And if you're not making these numbers, the first thing that you're going to lose is the meetings with me, because I'm not going to give you my time if you're not going to give me your effort. If you give me your effort, I don't care if you sell a house, just make your calls. If you're making your calls and you're not selling houses, that's my fault. That's training. I can fix that. But if you're not making your calls, it doesn't matter how intelligent or experienced you are, you're not going to do it. So that's kind of where I did a great job implementing the biweekly meetings, but I had to pull back a little bit and create team standards. If you do this, you're on the team. If you don't, you're off. And it's black and white. It doesn't matter who you are. That's really helped.
No, that's awesome, man. And I love that. We utilize the same approach. And we were talking before we hopped on the call or before we hit record today that we both kind of utilize some of the Ricky Carruth kind of cold calling prospecting method. And big shout out to Ricky, man. I binge watched his cold calling videos for probably about 48 hours straight. And like prior to that, like I didn't have very much success in the industry. Like I burned through very early on, probably 10 or 15 grand on like Facebook paid leads, got maybe 5 or 6 transactions out of that. And it was just, it was the shiny ball syndrome.
Yep.
So it was like, oh, you need this to be able to get lead flow in. You need this to be able to get lead flow in. And it's like, pay 4 grand for this course or 2 grand for that. And, I never really found a good system that was like, man, if you do this and you just do it long enough, like for one, you can see the results that I'm getting. For two, it's not going to break the bank. And for three, you can repeat this and be literally dropped anywhere in the United States and go be successful starting over.
Yeah.
And I mean, once all of those dots were connected for me, I'm like, this is the way that you can successfully build this business. And we didn't talk about it yet, but I mean, for those that don't know, I mean, this industry has an 87% failure rate.
Yeah.
That is wild. Like it's more difficult to become a barber and you have to put more time in than it takes people to get their real estate license.
Yep.
And like, I think in Georgia, there's like a 70-hour class. I don't know what the requirements are in Florida, but I mean, it's not that difficult.
No.
So everybody gets all gung ho. They're like, hey, I like talking to people. I like houses. I'm going to go sell real estate.
Yeah.
And then until they put on their realtor hat and now they realize, oh shit, I got to go prospect. Or, what does that mean? Oh, I got to talk to a bunch of people that don't want to talk to me.
Yeah.
Well, how do those conversations go? So, I mean, it's a bunch of falling on your face. So coming across that method was huge for my success. And then adding in like Quintavious Burdett's 4-point system.
Yep.
So I stole some of that and we created kind of like an 8-point system within our team, similar, but a little bit different. And really the conversations are the big parts that we coach on as well. And exactly like you said, with having that business development meeting, like if you can gamify your day to where you know exactly what it is that you need to do every day, just like you said with punching out with a time clock, it's no different than if you had a job. Like when you have a job, you have a job description of everything that's expected of you. And if you don't do that on a daily basis, you're not going to be compensated or you're not going to be compensated for very long. They're going to say, hey, you're not doing your job. You need to go find other employment. Well, if you have that mentality or approach, or if you have a system that can be duplicatable because you've seen other people do it, and you can say, hey, if I do this every day, it might not be tomorrow, it might not be next week, but I know without a shadow of a doubt that I'm going to be successful. Like that changes a light bulb in a lot of people's heads.
Yeah, 100%.
Previous to that, like you said, there's a bunch of people that they keep that very close to the chest and they don't want to share that information. Yeah. And so I think that's been probably one of the best light bulb moments for me. And really being able to share with our team and have that accountability system with looking at the scoreboard. So we use Sisu on our team. And that's been huge because it allows everybody, like the example that I always use is, you're a big sports fan, right? Baseball is your sport?
I like football the most, but I collect baseball cards. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that was it. So what I always say is, like, since you're a big football fan, if you were to walk in the stadium halfway through the game, within a matter of seconds, you could have an idea of what's going on because of the scoreboard.
Yes. Yep.
How much time's left in the game, what the motivation is, like why people are playing harder, what the score is, everything. Well, that's the same effect that our scoreboard or Sisu has on our business. Because if you don't know how much time's left in the quarter or what you've done for that day, like how do you know when to quit? So people hit burnout a lot faster because they're sitting there like, I'm busy all day, Jake, but I'm not getting any, traction in my business.
Yeah.
And so I say, tell me what you've been doing. And it's like, well, I spent 4 hours working on my website, and then I was designing business cards, and I was thinking about doing this, and I'm just like, okay, stop. No. So the four most important factors that you can do, like money generating activities on a daily basis, is, prospecting for new clients, writing offers, negotiating deals, and then showing properties. If you're not doing those four, go back to number one and start prospecting for new clients. So having that scoreboard so you can keep track of, how many conversations you're doing. And then from a team perspective, we found that we can say, hey, we as a team, we want to be at 45 agents by the end of the year. And we want to close $180 million in volume by the end of the year, because we do both residential and commercial. So it's pretty easy to be able to hit that. And then having that kind of team vision, it allows everybody else to kind of piggyback off of that as well. So they feel it's like, not only my own actions are moving that scoreboard forward, but now it's like everybody's moving everybody in the same direction with
Together.
Hey man, everybody's kicking ass. And that accountability, like I stole the idea from you. We use our team. We have monthly prospecting competitions. So whoever calls the most people, you get $100 gift card for a restaurant of your choice, or just $100 Visa card. So, I mean, incentivize the activity, because that's a lead measure, as opposed to the lag measure, which a lot of people look at, which is, how many transactions did you do? Well, that's not very relevant when you need to focus. What are the activities that get you the result?
Yep. 100%. So let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
When you've got newer agents coming in, let's say you got a brand new, do you take new agents, brand new agents?
Yep.
Okay. So you get a brand new agent and they start with you. What type of prospecting are you having them do? Is it up to them, or are you dictating what it is?
So I usually try to start everybody out doing circle prospecting, whether they like it or not, because most people absolutely hate it. Like, we asked the question on our team meeting the other day. It was, because we just onboarded a transaction coordinator to take care of all transactions within our team.
Yes.
And I mean, it's such a huge relief, because like, what's the average? Like 4 to 10 hours that an average agent spends on paperwork or in the weeds per transaction.
Yeah. And it can be the ugliest hours, the most emotional hours. Yeah.
So, I mean, being able to recapture that, and even if you aren't 100% recapturing that and prospecting, I mean, what would that do for your business to be able to say, hey, I can go show 4 more houses today because I don't have to do paperwork? Like, that's huge.
Yeah.
So being able to free that up, that was one of the things that we did. But yeah, circle prospecting is one of the absolute pivotal, like that. You could ask anybody on my team. That is the dead horse that I beat every single week. Like, it's so easy to go do, because show me another prospecting method to where you can talk to that many people without having to leave your house and actually get results. And I'm all ears and I'll listen to it, but nobody can bring one to me. Like, I love direct mail, but most new agents, they don't have the financial or the marketing budget to be able to justify that.
Yeah. Yeah. So looking at that, do you have certain standards that an agent has to meet, or they're off the team? And if so, what does it link to? And if not, well, I'll just say, if so, what does it link to? If not, I got more questions.
So we have a different team dynamic than most. And what I mean by that is we're more of a training mentoring team with a lower commission split for the team versus a traditional team where, like, once you're on the team, we're going to provide you X amount of leads.
Yep.
So we do have some lead flow that comes in from the natural advertising that we do, but we don't have, like, I hear horror stories that some of these teams are spending $30,000 to $50,000 a month on marketing.
Yep.
And I'm like, oh my God. I mean, I understand it from a scaling perspective, like business wise, it makes sense, but that's a huge amount of overhead. And then, in my opinion, that almost, it teaches lazy agents to almost be order takers. And it's like, well, I'm getting leads, I'm just going to sit back and wait for these leads instead of going out and farming my own, because this is easier. And it's like, hey, Joe, how come I haven't gotten any leads yet? Or it gives them another excuse to say, well, these leads aren't good, instead
Yep.
of always coming from the ultimate accountability of, I need to learn how to communicate better so that way I can convert these leads.
Yep. Yeah. And right now too, in this market has softened a little bit, at least down here in Florida. And it's not as easy to get sales as it was a year or two ago. So right now I'm running my entire operation on about 2,500 to $3,000 a month.
Mhm.
A good friend of mine is running his operation on 25 G's a month. Well, when the market shifted, it didn't really impact me that much because my nut every month is not anywhere near what he's got, but it impacted him big time.
Oh yeah.
So it was stressing him out. And for me, I just thought it is what it is. I'll just prospect a little bit more and work a little bit harder.
Yep.
So when you've got a boat that big, it's really tough to turn it.
Mhm.
I'm not speaking against, having a big budget and all that to scale, but you really have to be, it's not as simple as saying, hey, jack up your budget by 10 and you'll jack up your profit by 10. Yes, in a strong market, but you've got to be aware of what's going to happen in a turning market as well. So that's an interesting dynamic that I'm seeing a lot of team leaders, I don't want to say struggle with, but it's new because we really haven't seen a market go from really good to really, I don't want to say really soft, but softer in several years. And a lot of these
Mhm.
team leaders were not team leaders the last time it happened.
Yeah.
So it's, for me, it's fun because I love stuff like this. And but it's challenging. It's something that I haven't had to deal with yet as a team leader. I'm certainly glad my monthly budget's where it's at, but listening to you and the style of team that you're running, I'm sure you're not facing that issue either, or at least you're not facing it nearly, what your peers in the area are facing it. So I think that's really interesting, especially with Zillow. A lot of those Zillow folks, once you get into Zillow, man, I feel like your top maybe 3 to 5 agents per market, it's almost like pure pressure. Like if you want to own that zip code, you've got to go all in. If you go all in, you're easily at 10 grand a month. And that's assuming you've only got 1 or 2 zip codes. So it's interesting how quickly that racks up. And then you get the CRMs, and then you got, CSU, and then you get the website, and then it's so many things. But I run a lower split too. We're at 75-25 on the splits. And I know most major teams are around 50%,
Yeah.
give or take. And I've really, I get a lot of crap from my mentors because they want me to up it to 50%. And yeah, you'll lose some people, but you'll keep the good ones and blah, blah, blah. And I don't necessarily think that that's not true, but I'm also not doing it for a monetary purpose. Like I make enough money regardless. It doesn't really matter. So for me, I'm so addicted to taking people who say they want to do it, but they don't know the system. They don't have the experience. They don't have the mentorship. They don't have whatever. I don't want them to not be on a team because they're scared about losing 50%. So for me, that's kind of my motivation to keep it where it's at. But I always question myself, is that truly your motivation, or are you just not wanting to scare agents off by upping yourself to 50%? I don't know, but I know I'm having a lot of damn fun right now, and I know I'm making good money. And so I really haven't considered it, but it's an interesting thing to think about, isn't it?
No, it absolutely is. And I mean, you touched on something that there's a lot of teams out there that run that 50% split. And me, like even as a solo agent, like there's a lot of teams that do um, hundreds of transactions a year. And if you're on their team as a buyer agent or a listing agent, you probably do 30 to 40 transactions
Yeah.
by having that lead flow come in. But on that 50% split, I mean, you're probably making $150,000 a year. So I mean, that's pretty solid,
Yeah.
and that's a good option for somebody that wants to get really good in that one facet of their business.
Yes.
But one of the things that I've always looked at is like kind of the comment that I made about teaching or creating lazy agents is that, so what happens when that individual leaves that team? Like, do they have the knowledge or ability? I would hope that they can go off and do it on their own to repeat it,
Yeah.
or have you almost created kind of like a handicapped agent to where they have to be,
Yeah.
they're codependent on that team dynamic. And so I always tell everybody that comes on the team, like, we want to provide so much value to you that you don't leave. But if you do leave, you're going to be capable of doing everything that we're doing.
Yeah.
because I mean, if you can leave the team and go be successful and that's what you want to do, then I want you to go do that. And I'm going to help you any way that I can.
Yes.
Because one of the sayings that I always say is, it's like a recipe for delicious chocolate cake. You can give that same recipe to 10 different people and you'll have 10 different cakes.
Yep.
Because just because I give you the recipe for success doesn't mean you're going to follow it to the exact T of what it's supposed to be. Ego is going to kick in. You're going to be like, oh, it says 2 cups of sugar, but I know that it really needs 3. Or you can be like, well, I don't have this, or I don't have the time to do this activity, so I'm only going to do this. So, I mean, everybody decides that they want to switch stuff up as they feel necessary. Well, I mean, when you do that, you don't get the same result.
Yes.
And so what we always try to do is train everybody from the beginning, like, I'm going to give you everything. And if you use it, that's awesome. If not, just keep showing up and keep applying it until it makes sense. But you'll have the ability to essentially go out and go do your own thing, should that be your desire. But we're always going to try to provide so much value to you as a team member that there's really no reason for you to leave, because, I mean, we only have 80-20 splits. And so from that, I mean, we're taking very little off the top, but we also, like we talked about, like, we don't have a big overhead. I mean, since we're coming from a training and mentoring team perspective instead of the lead generation or lead purchasing. So like not having that $30,000 budget. I mean, what happens to some of these agents that get so dependent or fixated on like a Zillow Flex lead, and then something happens and those stop? Like if you don't have that diversified over to like Realtor.com or Google pay-per-click or whatever other lead source there is, and that lead source dries up, what happens now?
Yes. Well, and I'll tell you, the biggest team down here locally, and I think they were 29th in the nation. I hope they're not watching this right now. There were 2 gals from that team that I've got a good relationship with. And at an event, we were talking and they were together and they both said, we're doing 30, 40 deals a year, exactly like you'd said, probably making, 80, 100, 120. And I said, well, now you know how to do it. Like you're doing 30, 40 deals. That's a good amount of deals. You know how to do it. Why not leave? And both of them said, we're fearful that if we leave the system, we'll fail.
Yep.
And you and I both know that's not true. Like, dude, you can crush it. I've seen not that impressive of people. If they go out and they put towards the effort, they're going to be just fine, right? Effort matters. You've got the effort and you've got the experience, but it does breed, like you said, it breeds that, what I guess call is unearned fear. You don't need to have that fear. You can do it. And maybe laziness, maybe it's not necessarily fear. Maybe it's like, oh, do I really want to go through building this whole thing and building the system and building the CRM? And maybe you want to be told what to do. You want somebody who's, dictating exactly what's going to happen. But I'm the same way. I tell my guys all the time, my job is to, in 1 year, get you to where you can do your own thing with or without me. And if you choose to stay, great. If you don't, great. But my job is to get you there within 1 year. That's my job. And so I feel the same as you. When you talk about training, will you share with me a little bit? What kind of training do you guys do?
So we do 3 meetings a week. So every other Wednesday, since we are a hybrid team, we have like a commercial mastermind meeting, and then we'll have a residential mastermind meeting the following week. So that's an hour long. And during that time period, anybody that has any questions, complaints, bitches, gripes, concerns that they've dealt with or problems that they've come up with, bring those to the corresponding meeting and we'll talk about it. So like just yesterday, or no, wait, it was this morning. Just this morning we walked through a commercial contract that one of our team members got a property under contract. And so we were dissecting the ins and outs of it. And it's like, okay, so you guys were able to secure 8 points for the commission on the commercial deal. So that was phenomenal. And then we had another agent that had like a smaller commission that they had agreed to. So they had brought up and asked the question, hey, what was the conversation involved to get that higher commission? And so then that led off in a tangent of, you have to know your worth and you have to be able to provide that value to them that over and exceeds what you feel your worth is. Yes. Because if you're not confident in your worth, I damn sure don't believe that your client is going to believe that you're confident or that you're worth that much. So we do those mastermind meetings to talk about really either something that, my team leader, Jack Hudson, he's been a commercial broker for 23 years. and I'm the director of operations and the residential trainer for the most part. But we bring the topics to our team and say, what are you guys having trouble with? And sometimes in the kind of the 4 stages of learning, if you're aware of that, that first stage is you don't know what you don't know.
Yep.
And so that's where we kind of kick in and be like, okay, so here's some of the common things that you guys need to be aware of. Here's all the types of leases that you're going to come across. And I don't know if you're too familiar with the commercial side of it, but I mean, it's like the wild, wild west when like you don't have to have everything that's in a residential contract and a commercial contract. You can essentially write out a commercial contract on the back of a bar napkin and it's legally binding.
Yep.
So we do those 2 meetings once a week. And then we have our team meeting once a week where really it's just that recap of like, let's review the numbers. Let's look at the scoreboard. Let's look at individual prospecting and conversation accounts. Like, where's everybody at? And then we put that up there so everybody can see. And then I take it a step further. At the end of that month, I post that on Facebook, and it keeps everybody accountable. It's like, hey, if I'm not hitting my numbers, Jake's gonna, blast us out on Facebook. So I mean, there's a little bit of that social shame that helps kind of kick people in the ass to do that too. So I mean, it's good and it works, and we've gotten a lot of great feedback from it.
I like that. So what's your market look like up there?
Well, that's the interesting part. So I'm in Athens, Georgia, which is just a little bit on the east side of Atlanta.
I got to look it up while you're talking.
Georgia. We have a population, like if you Google it, we have a population of about 127,000 people. It's a big college town for the UGA, University of Georgia.
Is it in Athens?
Yep.
Okay, cool.
So that's the primary school that's here. And I mean, just to so the newsletter that I sent out this morning for the stats of our area last month, we had 422 active listings, 178 new listings, 120 sales. The median list price was $369. Average sold price was $400,000. Our average days on market is 65, and the list of sold price is still at 100%.
Wow. So you've got a pretty big discrepancy between the average, or I should say the median ask price you said was 365.
Median list price was 369, and the average sold price was 400,000.
Interesting.
Usually they chase each other a little bit, but the average sold price usually ranges for this year. I mean, it's been between about 360 and 400,000, depending on really the property sales for the area.
Yeah. So our median sales price, we had gotten up to about 425, 430. I'm guessing that was maybe 6 to 8 months ago, but now we're just below 4. It's 394, 392, something like that. And I literally just looked, I can't remember what it is now, but I want to say it's about 50% of homes are getting 100% of asking price or more. And of those that aren't, most of them are at 98, 97 or 98, 99%. But one big thing I'm seeing in this market, and I don't know if everybody's seeing it, is, and I'll give you 3 numbers. Our overall inventory for single family homes in Port St. Lucie, which is about double the size. It's like 2.25. Our overall inventory is 3.26 months. But when you look at what I consider to be first time home buyer, which is 400 and below, and then, separate that from 500 and above, the 400 and below is 6 weeks of inventory. It's 1.5 months. But when you look at 500 and above, I've got it right here. You're looking at 7.25 months of inventory. So that 500 plus, that was hot a year ago, 2 years ago. Now it's definitely a buyer's market. But when you're looking at that first time home buyer price point, it's not just a seller's market, it's a hot seller's market. And, this is my best guess. I think a lot of people that are in that 500 plus range have the ability to sit and wait more so than somebody at the, the first time home buyer price point. Those people are getting kicked out of rentals, whatever. Whereas at the 500, a lot of those people have to sell first, or, they have a house that they at least own, whether they have to sell it first or not. They got more options, more money, more options. And I think those first time home buyers, have not been able to do anything for 3 years unless they were cash. They got rid of their inspection contingency, which nobody wanted to do. They put hard escrow down, which nobody wanted to do. But all it took was one buyer who would do it, and all those other buyers lost out. So they haven't been able to do anything. They haven't gotten sellers to pay closing costs, right? Well, now you're seeing it soften, or at least the media is saying that it's softened. So I'm seeing those buyers come back out of the woodwork. Are you seeing anything similar in your market? Or tell me a little bit about the dynamics at different price points. What are you seeing?
So I'm 100% seeing, like, I go to a BNI group every week. And so we talk about, and for those that maybe are watching this that are in the industry, if you guys aren't currently in some kind of closed networking group, like, go create one if there's not one around you. But I mean, it's a huge resource to be able to have referral partners, like what we were talking about earlier on the call with, like, hey, if I hear that you have an issue with your roof, I got a roofer for you.
Yeah.
Or, if you need insurance, I got a guy for you. That's huge, because everybody wants to get to that referral business. But, to be able to get 50 referrals, you have to actively put out 100 good referrals.
Yes.
Not a lot of people realize that.
Yep.
But more about the market. So at those meetings, I let everybody know that we're still technically in a hot market if your price or your home is priced right, it's in a great location, and it's move-in ready. If you have the trifecta, I mean, you can basically put it on the market and look at multiple offers. But like, if you're still trying to play the, hey, I want to hit this unrealistic price point of homes that were selling a year ago, it's just not possible anymore.
Yeah.
You're going to have to price accordingly, or you're going to have to be fine with sitting on the market for a while. And those higher price points, pretty much anything above 500,000, that's technically the luxury market here in Georgia. And I mean, you're in a buyer's market, just like you said, where you're going to have longer days on market, and you have to be expected to wait. And then especially if you get up into the $1 million price point, I mean, you're going to be there for a while, and you just have to be willing to sit with it or list it accordingly. And then it all comes down to, what kind of marketing are you doing? I mean, if I have a listing appointment and I can show them my call logs that I make 200 calls a day,
yes,
talking to local property owners and finding out what's going on in their life, if they want to upsize, downsize, are you guys relocating? Hey, I got a property that's just down the street. Anybody that's looking in the market, like, I can show that. That's tangible. So that's a value add that, that's huge, that not a lot of other agents can do.
Yep.
And so when you have that kind of ammunition, I mean, it's a game changer.
Yeah. I don't know that a lot of agents use that as their marketing pitch in their listing presentation. That's one thing we do. And I tell my guys all the time, that's the most powerful thing we have, right? We've got paid leads. That's a big deal too. But that, and your ability to call them over and over and over until they pick up and they do something with you. That's something nobody, I shouldn't say nobody, but you said 87% fail out. That's something 87% of agents roughly aren't doing. So pitch it. So I think that's awesome that you are, man. You don't hear that often.
No, and like, if before we close out, I want to leave with, I'm going to ask kind of something similar to you, like, what's some of the best advice or kind of gold nuggets that you can drop for everybody. But like, there's so many older agents that are in kind of the last phase of their career that I talk to, and you would be absolutely blown away by how many of these agents don't have an exact number for their database.
Yeah.
Like, that just absolutely kills me, because I came across a good book that some agents probably don't think about. It happens a lot in the insurance industry, where you can buy a book of business if you relocate to another area.
Yes.
Well, you have the potential, like, agents don't realize that the real money in our industry, not only from our day-to-day grind, is our database that we're compiling. Yes. So if you can sit there, and like, Ricky Caruth is the example that I use on my team whenever I'm kind of teaching this moment to everybody for clarity's sake, is that if you can build a database that you have an exact number of, that you have like 19,000 people in it, and you're sending out a recurring email, and every week you have an X number percentage of people that are opening up that email. Yep. And of that database, not from doing any additional prospecting, but now you can have a consistent income, that's sellable. But if you 100%. Don't have that, then you can't do anything with it.
Yeah.
I mean, to my point of, like, some of the older agents, I ask them, I'm like, hey, so whenever it comes time for you to transition and maybe look at retiring or relocating or moving to the beach or, whatever it is that's in your path, what are you going to do with your current clients and your database that you have? They're like, honestly, Jake, it's just everybody that I've talked to is like, they're just in my email or they're just people that I know. And, they can't quantify. Like, I can tell you right now how many people exactly I have in my database.
Yep.
Because I send out the weekly email that everybody gets trained on.
Yeah.
And so the big systems that I would tell any new agent would be to prospect daily, collect email addresses, find a way to track your metrics, like with Sisu or something else, so that way you have a scoreboard, and then have a follow-up method on the back end for whenever they're ready to do something. I mean, those 4 things are the biggest things that you can do, and then don't worry about the results. Like, marry the process and divorce the result is the famous saying.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, I love that. And if I, ended it with some words of wisdom, I guess I'd say, kind of like you pointed out, right? Is a website important? Sure. Are pretty flyers important? Yeah, they're great. Is your business card important? Go get it, right? But all of those things, you need to get them up and going and drive on. Like, to spend any more than 10 minutes on your business card is crazy. To spend any more than, a half a day on your website is crazy. Just get it going. You can come back to it over time and you can improve on it, but you have to. I always talk about the rocket, man. You've got a rocket ship, and you might be the smartest, most outgoing, just driver, and you've got it all going on. But if you don't fuel it with prospecting, that beautiful rocket ain't going nowhere.
Yeah.
And I would all day long buy into a rocket that looks like crap, but it's actually got some fuel in it and it's going to take off, than that big, beautiful rocket that's not going anywhere. So you've got to prospect, and you absolutely should have some sort of tracking. You've got Sisu, I've got CTE, and you should have a plan. Like, I am going to have X amount of conversations a day, and that's it. You just don't quit until that happens, whatever that number is, right? And you're kind of guessing in the beginning, especially if you're not on a team. If you're on a team, they're going to give you a good, like, hey, if you do this, it's going to result in this much money. If you do this, it's good. So what do you want? But after 6 months of tracking, you're going to look at it and say, I did this many conversations and it resulted in this many dollars. So every conversation's worth this many dollars. How many dollars do I want to make a day? It's pretty easy, right? So you've got to do prospecting. You've got to track what it is you're doing. Even if you don't want to pay for Sisu or CTE, go get yourself an Excel spreadsheet, put some equations in there, and reach out to me. I'm more than happy to show you guys how to do that. And you've got yourself a cheap tracker. It's going to be a little more work than what Jake and I do, but it'll get you going, right? And you've got to time block your day. I'm a huge fan of time blocking before the day starts.
Yep.
Because you don't care as much about tomorrow, Jake, as you do today, Jake. You'll be a little lenient on today, Jake, if you got a weak mindset, but you don't give a damn about tomorrow, Jake. You want that guy to work. So use today, Jake, to build tomorrow's schedule. And then just consistent training. But I always throw an asterisk on this. I think it's good to spend maybe 2 to 4 hours improving yourself, whether that's reading books, going to training, watching YouTube videos, going to some Tony Robbins event, whatever it is you got to do. But number 1, do your 2 to 4 hours, because you've always got to get better. And number 2, don't do more than 4 hours, because if all you're doing is training, then you're the smartest person who doesn't have a business. Yep. And that's just absolutely worthless. So stop at 4 hours and start calling. And next week you can go in and put your, more training time in. But yeah, those, and I'm pretty sure I just reworded exactly what you said. I mean, we all get 10 of us on this show. We're all going to say the same thing, right? It's
that delicious chocolate cake.
What's that?
It's that delicious chocolate cake.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, it's the same cake. We all just cook it a little bit differently, but yeah. But listen, man, I really appreciate you having me on. Like I said, it's a huge honor. You become a great friend. It is genuinely fun, inspiring for me to watch guys like you and the success you're having. So I'm just a huge fan of watching it, man. Keep going.
Likewise, brother. And for all of those that haven't, somewhere around or below this video is going to be a link for you guys to check out Joe. If you're an agent and you need some help and you're in the Port St. Lucie area or wherever and you're interested in EXP, hit him up. We also operate in Florida as well, so we can definitely help you out from that perspective. But either way, go give Joe a follow if you aren't already, man. It's been a pleasure, and definitely look forward to doing another one in the future, my friend.
Thanks, man. Have a great day.
All right, brother. You too.